Hey there, it's Luke Newcomer with the Newcomer Group, where exceeding your expectation is our standard. And today, I want to talk with you, and I've got the specialized insurance broker with Brightway, Ryan Flagler. We're going to really dive into the importance of homeownership, the insurance market as a whole in Florida, and then get really niche and talk about right here in St. Augustine. So listen, I'm really excited to have this conversation. I'm stoked to have you here, Ryan. Ryan, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and your business, and then we can dive into all the questions that the consumer has right now about insurance.
So guys, I'm Ryan. I'm the agency owner with Brightway Insurance, the Flagler agency. From Atlantic Beach up in Jacksonville, Florida. I moved to St. Augustine to go to Flagler College, where I actually met Luke.
Go Saints.
Go Saints. We've been friends for a long time, which was really cool to see our relationship blossom into business as well. But right out of Flagler, I interned with Brightway. Been with them for, I think it's like 13 or 14 years now. Went from changing Rolodexes with a gentleman, 𝐻𝐿𝐼𝙭, all the way to owning my own agency, man. And Brightway's a great company, and that's why I've stuck with them for this long.
Yeah, it's been a ton of fun working with you. We've done hundreds of transactions, literally 500, 600, probably getting close to 1,000 transactions where you've been binding our customers' insurance policies. It's been an amazing partnership, and it's constantly evolved and grown. And because of that, that's why I want to sit down with you, because the goal is for the consumer to watch this video and almost understand everything they need to know before they even go under contract on a property from an insurance standpoint. So listen, let's dive into it. Pricing's going through the roof. Insurance companies are failing. Policies are getting canceled. Tell us about these challenges right now in the insurance market and what you're doing to hedge these problems. So, and I know that's a long-winded question, and you probably have a long-winded answer, but simplify that and we can unpack it during this conversation.
Perfect. Yeah, so insurance has just really gotten more strict would be the most candid answer. When I first started the industry, it was easy to insure homes regardless of age. It was more of a kind of a ebb and flow of in order for a buyer or a homeowner or driving a car, any type of insurance product, it was just very seamless to get to the finish line. With things now, it's just been more of a process. It's just more things are asked for, and pricing has gone up. Insurance carriers' underwriting guidelines have really gotten more strict. And that's based off of a lot of reasons, weather patterns, the current local market with what's kind of going on in the state of Florida with, the current, what I want to say is items that are kind of arising right now in the industry.
Roofing, HVAC, plumbing, electrical,
right.
and those, so kind of going into that, when someone goes under contract on a property and they want to get that quote really quick, it's not as easy as just saying, what's this, and giving them a quote right away. Right. You're going to get what's called a 4-point and a wind mitigation. Right. What is that?
So those are extra reports outside of your full home inspection.
Okay.
The 4 points typically going to be needed when a property is usually 25 to 30 years old or older.
Okay.
It used to be 40 years old, but like I said, things have gotten really strict in the marketplace right now to where these underwriting carriers are going to want to see more of that. And then the wind mitigation report is going to be typically needed for roofs and then also windows. So when someone was to put a new roof on a home that's that the home was built before March 1st, 2002, and they put a new roof on the home, that wind mitigation report, I like to call it the discount report, because it really can save a consumer some money by obtaining, showing the discounts for that new roof due to the building permits and how that roof is really tied to the home, making it more hurricane resistant.
Interesting. So basically paying that money up front for the wind mitigation is almost like a hedge to save you money as far as what 100%. You're going to be paying yearly for the insurance on the roof.
100%.
So like the clips, how it's installed, the type of roof. So you've got architectural shingle roofs, you've got metal roofs, clay tile roofs, you got flat roofs. You're an insurance agent. What is your preference for when you're looking for a roof to insure the property?
So again, going back to the way the industry's become is it's become really strict, especially on the shingle roof side. Right now, we're in the middle of hurricane season. And even before that, the industry's really tightened up on shingle roofs. Any roof that's really getting to be 15 years or older, the insurance company and the marketplace are really frowning on that due to, a lot of fraud going on. in the roofing segment, which is causing that. So these underwriters are you really get incentivized for having that new roof on the home.
Okay.
Easier to gain coverage and better pricing.
So better coverage, better pricing with a roof. You want to have it 15 years or newer. When it gets past that age, you might be in a predicament where that roof needs to be replaced, right?
For shingle, yeah.
Talk about metal roofs and clay tile roofs.
So metal roofs are going to be a lot more lenient as far as the life that you can get out of the roof. A lot of companies will go to either 25, 30 years, depending the company. As long as it's in good shape, no rust, no missing screws, no panels missing, of course.
Sure.
But metal roofs are more, I'd say, going to be sought after for an insurance company. And then tile roofs, that's another hard one because they used to be 50-year-old roofs, lifelong roofs, but they've really cracked on those due to tiles cracking, wear and tear from the sun, the Florida weather, much like shingles, but now tile roofs are really cracked upon about 20 to 25 years old in the industry today.
So the markets are constantly changing, right?
Big time.
So 3-4 years ago, even 10 years ago, I mean, you've been doing this now for a long time.
Yeah.
Even 10 years ago, the conversations were very different that you were having with the people purchasing the properties, the homeowners, the agents. We do a ton of business on Anastasia Island, downtown Villano. That's kind of like our bread and butter.
Sure.
And I would say that each property is not a one size fits all, where maybe you go out to a planned development community that was built in 10 years. Your insurance is going to be more favorable in those types of communities. Now, you bring it here, as a consumer that's moving here, what are the most important things you want to tell them to be looking for in a home? And I'm talking location, what the property has within it, and the components to insure it. What's your best advice? And not necessarily to get the best quote or the best price, but what are the things the consumer should be mindful of when purchasing in a coastal community like St. Augustine?
Yeah, so great question, Luke. I think, valuing our partnership, I was right off the bat when I got into this industry, being local in St. Augustine, where I first started the career here, I dealt with old properties, and I just thought that was kind of normal, right? Like 1910 year built homes, historical district, etc. And a lot of people really get kind of scared with that because, oh, it's a dated home, oh my gosh. Or hey, I'm going to be oceanfront in this coastal area. Oh my gosh, is this bad? Is this going to make my insurance through the roof? No, I would say, don't panic with that. I mean, partner yourself with the Newcomer group with Luke. They're going to educate you on that real estate, and the insurance will just fall in line based a bit upon the inspections, that 4-point, that wind mitt. And if there's anything that really arises that needs some TLC, we really, we really get on the forefront of that on the front end and tell you, what adjustments need to be done. Hey, this would be a good idea to implement, this on the property. But as far as age, location, if you're in love with the home, don't let the insurance dictate too much on you, because we can work through that. As being a broker, we can, it's not a one size fit all. We have really
shop different markets.
Big time.
Dive into that. Okay.
Yep.
Let's talk about flood insurance and elevations. That's a constant conversation that I'm having with buyers and sellers all the time. FEMA constantly changes the flood maps. I would almost say too, just as a side note, a lot of people, the biggest misconception here in St. Augustine, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but people that don't live here, they're looking to buy direct oceanfront. They assume that flood insurance is a must. You're more exposed there. When I would say you're almost safer closer to the beach from an elevation standpoint, because we have such high protected dunes, versus if you're going to go live on the intracoastal, that storm surge makes you more exposed from a flooding standpoint. Wind is probably more of a concern on the ocean. Is that an accurate statement?
So that's a complicated question, because water is a funny thing.
Right.
It takes the path of least resistance. So over here in the letter sections, you're going to have a lot higher elevation than you would towards some of the rest of the beach.
Like Davis Shores.
Like Davis Shores, it would be a great example. But here's the thing is the floodplains, when they were established, in the 1970s, before that, you could just take a piece of property and build a house on it, and no one really put your hand to the fire to really tell you, hey, you need to build to a certain height or not.
Right.
So, after that, that's when, the federal government started implementing flood zones and floodplains, and how high you had to build in order to, get your house permitted and making it safer. But to answer your question, what we do in our office is we run the flood zone, we look at the elevation, we make sure we let you know about the coverages and what really flood is for and what it's covering you for. Because I think the biggest misconception is a lot of the times people think that flooding is the same thing as water damage. And it's a big difference. Water damage is going to be any really kind of plumbing related instance, like a toilet overflow, a faucet leaking, water heater exploding, causing damage. Flood is going to be any type of water that's coming from the outside in, from the ground up, would be a good way of explaining.
So they're two totally different animals when you're talking water. And I think that's important to definitely take note of, because water damage could be from anything. It doesn't just have to be from natural disaster. It could be from falling asleep with your kitchen sink on and overflowing. So going back to flood insurance and elevations, technically the whole state of Florida is in a flood zone, correct?
That is a correct statement.
Okay, so that's people always ask me, is it in a flood zone? Everything's in a flood zone, but there's multiple different layers that you can look into to establish what that flood zone is. The two most common that I want to focus on today, and then maybe add something extra, is AE and flood zone X. Those are going to be probably the two most common yin and yang type flood zones that we're familiar with. Can you tell us which one, like what do both of those mean, and what should you be mindful of between X and AE?
So I love how you just mentioned that every property in the state of Florida is in a flood zone. That's true, because it's nails on a chalkboard. I'll hear a lot of people say, I'm not in a flood zone, and you're not in a flood zone. The other half of that sentence is that's required if you were to have a mortgage, which would be the X flood zone. So if a property is located in an X flood zone, it doesn't necessarily, a lot of the times your lender, your mortgage company does not mandate for you to carry a flood insurance policy to close on that home. It does not mean that the property could never flood. So when I hear I'm not in a flood zone, politically correct, you are in a flood zone, just the X flood zone is more preferred, less subject to flooding. It's still a very good idea to buy flood insurance, because when hurricanes come, it creates a tremendous amount of rain, tidal surge, water coming from the outside of the home into the home from the ground up. And that could be pretty catastrophic. I've dealt with a lot of flood claims being in a coastal agency, and they're pretty horrific. So I think if I just keep it short and sweet, is if you live in Florida, buy flood insurance.
And
simply put.
I'll add to that. I'm a big advocate of I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
The whole game of my industry.
Yeah, and that is truly insurance. And I like to buy up on my insurance, and that's just a personal preference. But in an X flood zone, your costs are going to be lower. Now, there's many scenarios, because these flood zone maps constantly can change, right?
They can, yeah.
And what I've noticed is you can have a house that's in an X flood zone, but if there's a small portion of that property that has AE on it, your lender will require you to carry flood insurance, correct? Even if it's just a slither of that AE, correct?
Correct, but just to elaborate there, it would be if you have your lot, and if the AE is touching the lot, and not the home, and the home's fully in X, Luke, you'll still be considered an X flood zone. And I can show an aerial map, but now if any portion of the dwelling, the house itself, is touching any other flood zone besides X, AE, VE, A, if even the smallest part of your back porch is entering that flood zone, you're going to be mandated to carry flood insurance, and that flood insurance zone will change from X to AE, even though the slightest portion is touching that required flood zone, like you're mentioning, AE.
Sure.
Correct.
Awesome. Okay, so couple components just to summarize a few things. So you want to focus on the roofing, the plumbing, the electrical, the HVAC. Those are all important aspects.
Right.
Hot water heater, if it's 15 years or older, most likely the underwriters, the insurance company is going to require you to change out that hot water heater. I want to talk about pricing. That to me is, I think, what the consumer probably cares the most about. And the one thing that we find common here is, hey, insurance company A said they can do it for $5,000. Insurance company B says they can do it for $3,000. Which one do you go with? Because the cheaper one makes the most sense, but then why would the more expensive company, sometimes it can be you versus another one, why does it make sense to go with the more expensive policy?
So I think that's really important to align yourself with like an agent like myself with Brightway and my team, because we're independent. And being an independent broker, you know, we have multiple carriers that we actually shop the market for the consumer. We're not just married to one logo. I think that's really important. And the reason being is because, like you said, pricing can fluctuate, but you know, pricing is just one factor with insurance.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is we really pride ourselves in our agency to, you know, no matter what personality I'm talking to on the phone, I know you want a good price. You know, right when the phone rings or you walk through my door, I know price is a lot of the times the forefront of insurance, but we take it to, we kind of like to put that as out of 3 points, the last one, because, you know, we like to look at who's the quality of the insurance carrier? How long have they been in business? How highly are they levered on reinsurance? You know, how much money do they have in the bank? Can they pay the claim if the 100-year storm hits, right? Sure. And then also we look at your coverages. You know, anyone can lead with price and just give you the best price, but does that mean you have good coverage? Does that mean that you actually bought up, God forbid something was to happen on your home and you need to file a claim? Well, we really like to give that confidence and you know, consulting the client about, you know, hey, we know price is meaningful, but let's talk about your coverages and what dictates that price. And then we really kind of taper it to their needs, what they can afford, what's meaningful to them, because everybody has different things in their home, sure, different style of home, and then also, of course, different personalities. Like you mentioned, you like to buy up insurance. I'm the same way because I do this for a living, right, but I also have, you know, some clientele that, you know, would rather risk it, kind of
pay the money out of pocket, right, worst case scenario. Right, and exactly. I think that those are really important questions to get answered up front. I know Ryan takes the time to understand what your situation is and then tries to deliver a package that's going to make you most comfortable. Right. And to add to that, to bring everything back, you know, what is the difference between primary homeowners insurance and if you're purchasing an investment property? Because if you're buying an investment, that insurance policy on the house is typically going to be more expensive than if you're buying for a primary insurance. Is that correct?
It depends on a lot of factors. I mean, like year bill, distance to coast and stuff. So there's a lot of actuarial standpoints that dictate price. But as just a general blanket statement, the two form types are different. A lot of times with a primary home, you're going to have an HO3 product, HO6 if it's a condo, or if you're a renter, HO4. I know we're not really talking about renters sure, policies now. But then if you have any type of rental, we typically write it on like a DP3 product, which, and nerding out on you a little bit on the insurance language, all that is it's really the same homeowner's form. It just one form allows tenants to occupy the home when the other one doesn't. So when you do shop for insurance, it's very key to make sure that you let your insurance agent know, hey, we plan on renting this, or it's going to be a secondary home, and when we're not there, we plan on renting it. Those details matter because when we align yourself with the insurance carrier and we create the product for you, we want to make sure it works. We don't want to write it on the wrong form and then something, God forbid, was to happen and, you know, it's not written correctly. So when there's a tenant involved, Luke, it's a specific form. When it's a primary, it's a specific form. But on the pricing standpoint, it just really depends on year built, type of construction. So there's many different factors that dictate that pricing, but
that's good to know. I didn't know that.
I will tell you this though. There's this rumor and misconception that with rentals, like it's going to be a lot more expensive to where it gets people nervous. Right. And it really doesn't. It's
a big reason people think that is because when you buy an investment property, the interest rate's higher. So right, they assume everything else is, and they do not correlate with one another, that's actually something I wasn't too familiar with, which is why I asked the question. Another thing that I kind of learned, thanks to you because of the partnership, but if you've been living in your home for 3+ years, how often should you be reevaluating your insurance policy? Home values have gone through the roof in the last 3 years. Right. To the point where you probably are underinsured if you haven't reanalyzed what your current policy is. How often should homeowners be getting with their insurance agent or carrier to say, hey, do I have enough coverage or do I have too much coverage? Do we need to be reanalyzing the property that you're insuring? How often should people be doing that?
So on a blanket statement, anytime you put some more money as far as renovations in the home, you want to always reevaluate when the renovations are done to make sure you have ample enough coverage, because if you put money in the home, that brings that market price up and that equity up in the home, you want to definitely have your insurance reflect that, right? Putting a pool in, new floors, new kitchen, etc. But I usually tell people when you get your renewal in the mail, it's typically always a good time to look at that, call your agent, make sure that you're happy with the coverages. And what I like to say is, people should go to the doctor and get a physical every year. No different than your insurance. When your renewal comes, it's a good time to pick up the phone, call, evaluate, make sure that you're comfortable with what you have. But in this market right now, Luke, if you have a renewal, it's really kind of half the battle due to how strict the market's become.
Sure.
So the sheer fact that you have a renewal with your policy, even though pricing has gone up, the market share right now in the industry is very limited. So it's just a good job to always, I like to say, just call your agent, and make sure, call our team and say, hey, we just want to kind of, make sure we're confident and understand what we're buying. And that's our job, is to consult you, to provide you that confidence and hold your hand and understanding it.
My last question for you is, what sets your business apart from other people within the industry?
I'd say turnaround time, and then also my staff. My staff's the backbone of my whole entire office. We work hard, and what really separates us is for two things. We're not married to one specific logo. We're independent, and we can really educate you on a lot of products. We do homeowners, auto, flood. I like to tell people, if you can touch it, I can insure it.
I love that.
And then also, just taking the time with Brightway, it allows us in our model to really, not just kind of push you to the side, hey, just pay for it. You need insurance, we know you need it, just pay for it. We really like to take the time to consult you in understanding the product, because 74% of people just don't really know about insurance. They just know they need it.
Yes.
And actually, if we just put it in layman terms of insurance, it's really not that hard to understand, as long as you have, you've aligned yourself with a partnership to where you trust your agent and they provide you that understanding of how it all works and breaks it down to you in those layman terms aspects, which my team is very good at doing and bringing it full circle for someone to understand with basic knowledge.
This is the largest asset you're going to purchase.
Right.
And I would say that aligning yourself with someone like Ryan or in a different market, it's crucial, especially if you want to build out a real estate portfolio, or if you just want to make sure you have the best coverage to one of the largest assets that you're going to be purchasing. It's a big reason we partner together. Ryan, I appreciate you hopping on.
Thank you.
We'll make sure we have all of your contact information below here. Let us know what you thought about the video. Drop a comment, share it with a friend. All things insurance here at St. Augustine and Florida throughout. Ryan Flagler with Brightway Insurance.
Thank you. Thanks, Luke.